Right now, some part of your brain is bored. Even if you're interested in this, even if you're curious, even if you chose to press play, there is a layer underneath your attention that keeps scanning, waiting for something slightly more stimulating, slightly more rewarding, slightly more alive. That feeling has a name. We call it boredom. It feels small and ordinary, almost timeless, as if humans have always felt this quiet restlessness. But it isn't timeless. It is new. Not new to you, but new to the species. For most of human history, the human brain did not experience boredom the way you do now. Not because life was exciting. Life was often slow, repetitive, physically demanding, but because the mind had not yet learned to turn against stillness. So when did it begin? To understand that, we have to remove modern life completely. We have to step back into a world without screens, without artificial light, without climate control, without the constant hum of electricity in the background of every room. Imagine standing on open land 200,000 years ago. No buildings interrupt the horizon, no distant engines echo across the air. The sky darkens naturally as the sun lowers, and the wind moves through tall grass and uneven waves. A small group of humans crosses the landscape slowly, not for exercise, not for leisure, but for survival. They have been walking for hours. Eventually, they stop, not because a clock says the day is over, not because a notification reminds them, but because the light is fading and the terrain ahead becomes uncertain. They gather wood and build a fire. Some sit close to it. Some watch the horizon. A child traces shapes in dust. An elder speaks quietly. Hours pass. There is no entertainment, no stream of new information arriving every few seconds, no curated distraction competing for attention, and yet no one feels the specific, restless irritation you feel when nothing seems to be happening. Why? Because their attention has somewhere to go. The wind shifts direction. Insects rise and fall in uneven rhythms. A branch cracks in the distance. The temperature drops gradually as night settles in. Even silence carries texture. The nervous system evolved inside that texture, inside subtle variation, inside environments that never stayed completely still. The human brain did not evolve for constant excitement. It evolved for responsiveness. Excitement is intense and brief. Responsiveness is steady and continuous. Ancient life was responsive, not exciting. Modern life is exciting, but rarely responsive. That difference matters. Boredom is not the absence of excitement. It is attention without a worthy object. In ancient environments, worthy objects were everywhere. The sky shifting color, the fire changing shape, the tone of someone's voice beside you, the scent of rain before it arrives, the feeling of hunger in your body. There was no gap between what the nervous system expected and what the world provided. Modern boredom lives inside that gap. You can sit in a perfectly climate-controlled room with stable temperature, stable light, and stable sound. Nothing moves. Nothing changes. Your nervous system, however, is still calibrated for variation, for micro shifts, for subtle signals. When those signals disappear, attention floats. Floating attention feels uncomfortable. You interpret that discomfort as boredom. But boredom is not simply nothing happening. It is attention without grounding. For most of human history, grounding was automatic. Even waiting was embedded in movement. Hunter-gatherers had idle moments, yes, but those moments were surrounded by unpredictability. Clouds drifted, animals shifted, wind carried scent. The landscape remained alive. Waiting did not mean emptiness. It meant watching, listening, sharing quiet with others. Even solitude was rarely isolation. You were alone within landscape, within weather, within sound. Modern solitude often means separation from both people and environment. Four walls, artificial light, minimal sensory variation. When the external world becomes flat, the internal world grows louder. Thoughts echo, time stretches, restlessness rises. We assume something is wrong with us, but the nervous system is doing what it has always done, scanning, seeking variation, looking for change. You are not bored because you lack discipline. You are bored because you are human. Human in an environment no human nervous system evolved inside. Consider winter in prehistoric life. Long nights, cold air, short days. It sounds unbearable to modern imagination, but winter was not empty. It was preparation, repairing tools, preserving food, telling stories, watching the sky for shifts in weather. The silence was alive, ice cracking, wind pressing against shelter, breath visible in cold air. There was still unpredictability, still texture, still engagement. Modern silence is often sealed. No wind enters the room, no gradual dimming of light, no organic fluctuation in sound, just a steady hum of electricity. Uniformity replaces variation. Uniformity breeds restlessness. The word boredom itself is surprisingly recent. In English, it appears in the 18th century. Earlier cultures had words for sorrow, fatigue, longing, but not quite this specific restless dissatisfaction with nothing happening. The feeling likely existed in fragments, but it was not widespread enough to define daily life. Something structural had to change, not in personality, not in morality, in environment. Humans had to stop moving. They had to remain in one place long enough for monotony to solidify. They had to live inside boundaries stable enough for attention to lose its natural anchor. That shift began around 10,000 years ago, when humans planted seeds and stayed. And for the first time in our history, waiting became a life. When humans planted seeds, they made a decision that changed the nervous system forever. For hundreds of thousands of years, movement shaped attention. Humans followed animals, seasons, water, and weather. The world changed around them constantly, and their minds adapted to that change. Attention had weight. It attached to real shifts in the environment. Agriculture altered that relationship. At first, it did not feel like loss. It felt like control. Food could now be produced instead of chased. Shelter could be permanent instead of temporary. Grain could be stored. Children could grow up in one place instead of migrating across landscapes. Stability increased. But stability changes how the brain experiences time. In a hunting life, each day carries uncertainty. Will there be food? Will the weather turn? Will something appear on the horizon? Uncertainty keeps attention anchored to the present moment. In farming life, survival becomes partially structured around waiting. You prepare the soil, you plant, you water, and then you wait. You cannot force the seed to grow faster. You cannot rush the season to turn. You wake up and see the same field, the same rows, the same horizon, day after day. Repetition enters human life in a new way. Repetition itself is not harmful. The brain tolerates repetition when it carries urgency or subtle variation. But agriculture introduced repetition without immediate unpredictability. The crop does not change hour to hour. The field does not shift suddenly. The horizon remains still. Time becomes visible. For the first time in history, humans begin to notice time as something that passes slowly. Clay tablets from early Mesopotamian societies include complaints about waiting for rain, about delayed harvests, about days stretching longer than expected. These are not dramatic cries of despair. They are quiet frustrations, but they are new. Waiting becomes an occupation, and waiting without variation creates space inside the mind. Space is not inherently negative. Space allows reflection. Myth deepens. Religion becomes more structured. Stories expand beyond immediate survival. Art evolves in more symbolic forms. But space also exposes restlessness. When nothing external demands attention, attention turns inward. Inward attention can become imagination, but it can also become irritation. It can magnify awareness of time passing. It can create a sense of something missing even when survival needs are met. Proto-boredom likely begins here, not as an epidemic, not as a cultural crisis, but as a faint sensation. A farmer repairing the same tool again. A long afternoon with no visible change in the field. A winter stretch when growth halts and days blur together. Time no longer flows through movement. It accumulates, and accumulated time feels heavier than flowing time. You are not weak for noticing when time stretches. Your brain evolved in environments where time was embedded in activity. When activity narrows, time becomes more noticeable. When variation decreases, attention drifts more easily. Cities deepen this shift. Permanent settlements grow into dense environments. Stone replaces open sky. Walls replace horizon. Boundaries tighten. The world becomes structured. Cities increase stimulation in one sense, noise, trade, conversation, but they also increase repetition. Specialization emerges. One person bakes, another builds, another counts. Roles narrow. When you perform the same task daily, your field of variation shrinks. Your attention attaches to a smaller slice of reality. Civilizations grow more complex, but individual sensory worlds become more contained. This is not immediately harmful. Civilization produces architecture, law, literature, science, but attention becomes structured around routine. Then comes something even more transformative, the clock. Before clocks, time is cyclical. Sunrise, sunset, season, harvest. Time moves with natural rhythm. After clocks, time becomes segmented, measured, audible. The tick divides the day into units. Units create expectation. Expectation sharpens awareness. An hour becomes something you endure. A shift becomes something you survive. When you know exactly how long something lasts, your attention tracks it. Tracking time amplifies discomfort. It intensifies boredom. Measured time changes the internal experience of waiting. Industrialization magnifies this further. Factories replace fields. Machines replace hand rhythm. Artificial light extends the day. For the first time, large numbers of humans spend entire days inside enclosed spaces performing identical motions. Not because weather demands it, not because animals move, because machines require consistency. Mechanical repetition is different from organic repetition. Organic repetition carries subtle shifts, weather changes, bodily fatigue, social variation. Mechanical repetition is uniform. Uniformity starves the nervous system of variation. 19th century physicians begin documenting a strange condition among factory workers. Not fatigue, not illness, but a hollow, restless disengagement, a sense of emptiness during repetitive labor. One German physician described it as the soul's protest against mechanical repetition. The phrase may sound dramatic, but it captures something real. The nervous system evolved in landscapes that never stayed perfectly still. Factories created environments that did. For the first time, boredom becomes widespread. But even industrial life still contains grounding. Workers leave the factory. They feel weather on their skin. They walk through streets filled with people. They return to homes where conversations unfold face to face. Variation still exists outside factory walls. The final transformation happens more quietly. Climate control, artificial lighting, private rooms, personal screens, total environmental control. Stable temperature, stable brightness, stable sound, the safest environments humans have ever created. Safety removes urgency. Urgency organizes attention. Without urgency, attention floats. But now, something else happens. Instead of turning inward slowly, toward reflection, imagination, storytelling, attention turns outward toward instant artificial novelty. Screens provide variation on demand, endless scrolling, rapid shifts, new images, new headlines, new signals. The nervous system receives stimulation, but not grounding. This creates oscillation, overstimulation, then emptiness. Ancient boredom was slow and embedded in environment. Modern boredom is sharp and disconnected. It feels like something is missing even when everything appears available, because something is missing, not entertainment. Variation with meaning. The world no longer changes around you in subtle, organic ways. So you seek change in artificial ones. You're not bored because you lack ambition. You are bored because your nervous system evolved for landscapes, not sealed systems. Agriculture opened the first gap. Clocks widened it. Factories deepened it. Modern life sealed it. And now the distance between what the nervous system expects and what the environment provides is larger than ever before, which leads to a quieter question. What is actually happening inside you when boredom appears? Why does silence feel heavier now? Why does stillness sometimes feel threatening? Why does your hand move toward your phone almost before you notice it? The answer is not weakness. It is biology meeting a new world. What is actually happening inside you when boredom appears? Not philosophically, not historically, biologically. When external stimulation drops, a network inside the brain becomes more active. It is often called the default mode network. It activates when you're not focused on a specific task, when you're not solving something, not reacting, not responding. In ancient environments, this network was likely a gift. Long evenings near firelight, slow afternoons waiting for weather to shift, moments of rest after movement. The brain would wander. It would replay conversations, simulate futures, imagine alternatives, connect memories. Boredom in small doses may have fueled imagination. It may have helped generate stories, art, and problem solving, It may have strengthened social bonds through reflection, but there is a difference between wandering in a living landscape and wandering in a sealed room. The default mode network does not only create creativity, it also creates self-awareness, self-evaluation, rumination. When the external world provides variation, wind shifting, light fading, social presence nearby, the wandering mind has anchors. It drifts, but it rests against something real. When the external world becomes flat and controlled, the wandering mind has nothing to rest against, so it amplifies itself. Thoughts grow louder. Time becomes more noticeable. Physical sensations become sharper. Silence feels heavier. Neuroscientists describe something called sensory gain. When external input drops below a certain threshold, the brain increases its internal signal. It turns up its own volume. This is why silence can feel uncomfortable. It isn't truly silent. Your internal signal has been amplified, and when that amplification happens without grounding, the feeling that emerges is restlessness. That restlessness is boredom. You reach for your phone not because you are weak. You reach for it because your nervous system is seeking variation. In ancient environments, variation was automatic. Cloud movement, animal calls, human voices, temperature shifts. The body itself provided constant feedback from a changing world. Today, variation must be manufactured. Screens provide it instantly. New image, new headline, new signal. The brain receives stimulation, but not depth. Stimulation without grounding creates a loop. Attention spikes. Meaning stays shallow. The spike fades. Emptiness returns and feels sharper after the spike. Modern boredom is not just the absence of stimulation. It is the contrast after overstimulation. Your baseline shifts. If your nervous system spends hours each day in rapid high-frequency novelty, anything slower begins to feel like deprivation. Conversations feel slow. Reading feels slow. Stillness feels unbearable. Not because you are incapable of depth, but because your baseline has recalibrated. You are not bored because you lack purpose. You are bored because your brain adapts to its environment, and your environment now changes faster than biology can. There is something else layered beneath boredom: safety. For most of human history, safety was temporary, brief, fragile. The nervous system remained alert because it had to. Modern life, at least in many parts of the world, has removed much of that urgency. We have stable shelter, reliable food, artificial light, climate control. The ability to close a door and know nothing will enter without permission. We succeeded. But safety has a paradox. Urgency organizes attention. Without urgency, attention floats. Floating attention feels unstructured. Unstructured attention feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is boredom. You are not broken. You are unaccustomed to prolonged safety. The nervous system evolved in environments where total safety rarely lasted long. Now, it can last for hours, days, even years. And when the nervous system no longer needs to scan for threat, it scans for stimulation. If it finds none, it generates restlessness. Boredom is not weakness. It is unused attention. There is another layer that often goes unspoken: loneliness. For most of human history, Idle moments were shared. You waited with others. You rested near others. You listened together. Even solitude was temporary and relational, a withdrawal from a group you could return to. Modern boredom often happens in isolation, alone in a room, alone with a device, alone with internal thought. When social presence decreases, internal awareness increases. The mind turns inward more sharply. Without shared grounding, boredom can blend with loneliness, not identical, but adjacent. Your nervous system was shaped in groups. Shared attention regulated it. Modern isolation removes that regulation. So the mind feels louder. You are not bored because you are empty. You are bored because you are human. Human in an environment that is quieter in the wrong way. Human in a world that is safer than any world before it. Human with a nervous system designed for movement, variation, shared presence. The answer is not to eliminate boredom completely. Boredom in small amounts is generative. It pushes imagination. It nudges exploration. Many creative breakthroughs emerge from moments when nothing urgent demands attention. But chronic boredom, instantly relieved by scrolling, interrupts that process before it deepens. It prevents the wandering mind from settling long enough to produce insight. The mind needs silence the way the body needs sleep, not as emptiness, as restoration. Early humans endured long nights and vast quiet, but their quiet was textured, alive, responsive, embedded in shifting air and subtle sound. Our quiet is often sealed, flat, artificial, and inside that flatness, the nervous system searches for movement. That search feels like boredom. Maybe the deeper question is not when humans first felt bored. Maybe it is what kind of world the human mind actually needs. Not constant entertainment, not endless stimulation, but subtle variation, physical engagement, shared presence, unpredictable reality, and real stillness, not interrupted stillness. The wind still shifts. Light still fades slowly. Your nervous system still remembers how to settle into those rhythms. Nothing about you is malfunctioning. You are not bored because you are broken. You are bored because you are human. Human in conditions no human has ever navigated before. And the restlessness you feel is not the enemy. It is memory.